Plastic. It is a material that has, in many ways, defined our modern age. We find it all around us, in our homes, our cars, our shops. It is versatile, cheap and durable, yet this very durability, this resistance to breaking down has led to an unintended consequence. A consequence that is largely invisible to the naked eye. I speak, of course, of microplastics. These are tiny fragments, often smaller than a grain of rice, that are now permeating every part of our world. They have been discovered in the deepest ocean trenches, frozen in Arctic ice and atop the highest mountain peaks. They swirl in the air we breathe and flow in the rivers that quench our lands. This invisible presence is a stark reminder of our impact on the planet. For decades, we have produced and discarded plastic with little thought for its ultimate fate. Now we are learning that as these plastics break apart, they do not truly disappear. They merely become smaller, transforming into these microparticles. So, what precisely are these microplastics that cause such concern? Scientists define them as pieces of plastic less than 5 millimeters in length. To put that into perspective, that is about the size of a sesame seed, or even smaller. Many are so tiny they can only be seen with a microscope. Yet, despite their diminutive size, their numbers are astronomical, creating a sort of plastic dust that blankets our world. They come in many forms: tiny fibers, small beads, irregular fragments, or even thin films. There are broadly two main categories of these minute plastic particles. The first are known as primary microplastics. These are plastics that are intentionally manufactured to be small. Think of the tiny plastic beads, often called microbeads, that were once commonly added to exfoliating face washes, scrubs, and even some toothpastes. Another example includes small plastic pellets, sometimes called nurdles. These are the raw building blocks used in the plastics industry, melted down to create larger plastic items. The second category is secondary microplastics. These originate from the breakdown of larger plastic items. Consider the plastic bags that drift in the wind, the discarded water bottles that litter our landscapes, or the fishing nets lost or abandoned at sea. Over time, exposure to sunlight, wind, and the relentless action of ocean waves causes these larger items to become brittle. They fragment into smaller and smaller pieces, eventually becoming microplastics. Therefore, the sources of microplastics are incredibly varied and deeply intertwined with our daily lives. The consequence of this constant generation of microplastics is their widespread presence in almost every conceivable environment on Earth. They are no longer confined to polluted rivers or coastal areas. Scientists have found them swirling in the air of remote wildernesses far from direct human contamination. They have been detected in the soil of agricultural lands, potentially affecting the growth of the crops that feed us. Deep sea sediments, once thought pristine, are now known to harbor these particles. The water we drink, whether from taps or bottles, can also contain them. The impact on marine life is particularly well documented and deeply concerning. Tiny aquatic organisms, such as zooplankton, which form the very base of the marine food web, ingest these microplastics. They mistake the particles for food. These plankton are then eaten by small fish and shellfish, and so the plastics, along with any toxins they may carry, begin their journey up the food chain. This means that larger predators, including fish that we might consume, seals, and even whales, can accumulate higher concentrations of these plastics in their bodies over time. For many creatures, ingesting plastic can have direct and devastating effects. When animals consume plastic pieces, their stomachs can become filled with indigestible material. This can lead to a false sense of fullness, causing them to eat less real food and ultimately suffer from malnutrition or even starvation. Beyond the direct harm to individual animals, microplastics can also subtly alter entire ecosystems. Section 4. Human health risks, the threat within. The pervasive nature of microplastics means that it is not only the inhabitants of our oceans or wildlands that are at risk. We humans are also constantly exposed to these minute particles. One of the primary routes of exposure is through ingestion. We can consume them when we eat seafood, As fish and shellfish can accumulate microplastics from their environment, they are found in salt, in honey, and even in beer. Bottled water has been shown to contain significantly higher levels of microplastics than tap water. We can also inhale airborne microplastic fibers and particles, particularly indoors where they shed from textiles, furniture, and dust. Alarmingly, scientific research has confirmed the presence of microplastics within the human body. These tiny invaders have been detected in human lung tissue, suggesting that the particles we inhale can lodge deep within our respiratory system. They have been found in our bloodstream, indicating they can pass from the digestive system or lungs into our circulation and be transported throughout the body. Microplastics have also been identified in human placentas, raising profound concerns about potential exposure and effects on developing fetuses. The presence of these foreign particles within our tissues is unlikely to be benign. Our bodies are designed to react to foreign invaders, and microplastics could trigger inflammatory responses as the immune system tries to deal with them. Chronic inflammation is linked to a host of health problems, including heart disease, arthritis, and other conditions. Beyond the physical impact, many plastics contain a cocktail of chemical additives. These chemicals are used to give plastics their desired properties, such as flexibility, color, or fire resistance. Section 5. Practical strategies: reducing our microplastic intake. While the global scale of microplastic pollution can feel overwhelming, it is important to remember that we are not without agency. There are indeed practical and meaningful steps that each of us can adopt in our daily lives. These actions, when multiplied across communities and nations, can significantly reduce our personal exposure to microplastics. Furthermore, they contribute to lessening the overall burden of plastic pollution on our shared environment. A fundamental starting point is to consciously reduce our reliance on single-use plastics, which are major contributors to plastic waste and subsequent microplastic formation. We can make simple swaps, such as always carrying reusable shopping bags to avoid plastic carrier bags. Investing in a durable, reusable water bottle and coffee cup can eliminate the need for countless disposable plastic bottles and cups. When eating out or getting takeaways, we can politely decline plastic straws, cutlery, and unnecessary plastic packaging. Opting for fresh, unpackaged fruits and vegetables at the market instead of those wrapped in plastic also makes a difference. Our clothing choices and laundry habits also play a significant role. Synthetic fabrics like polyester, acrylic, and nylon are essentially plastics, and they shed thousands of tiny microfibers every time they are washed. Whenever possible, choosing clothes made from natural fibers such as organic cotton, linen, wool, or hemp can help. When washing synthetic garments, doing so less frequently, using a colder wash cycle, and filling the washing machine to capacity can reduce fiber shedding. Special laundry bags or filters designed to capture microfibers are also becoming available. Section 6. Conclusion: a call for collective action. The journey into the world of microplastics reveals a challenge that is both complex and deeply concerning. These minute, often invisible fragments of our plastic age have become an undeniable part of our planet's fabric. They drift through our oceans, settle in our soils, are carried on the winds, and as we have seen, they even find their way into our own bodies. The potential impacts on the delicate ecosystems that sustain all life and on our own health and well-being are significant and demand our urgent attention. This is not a distant problem, it is one that touches every single one of us every day. Yet, with this growing awareness comes not despair, but the impetus for action. We are now more informed than ever before about the sources of microplastics and the pathways through which they spread. We are beginning to understand the harm they can inflict. This knowledge is a powerful tool, empowering us to make conscious changes in our behavior, in our consumption patterns, and in the way we manage our resources. Individual efforts, while crucial, must be complemented by broader systemic changes. We need to call for and support a fundamental shift in how we produce, use, and dispose of plastics. This includes innovations in material science to develop genuinely biodegradable and sustainable alternatives. It means designing products with their entire life cycle in mind, prioritizing durability and recyclability. Industries must take greater responsibility for the waste their products generate.